Let's remember how Glass-Steagall got started. Great Depression, 1933, we said one way that we can take risk out of the system is to separate ordinary banking, checking accounts, savings accounts, from the high-risk activities that take place on Wall Street, that kind of gambling. And so we put a wall between the two. That was Glass-Steagall. But the banks wanted those profits you get from the high trading, and the traders wanted access to that depository money in the banks. So they kept pushing on Washington to repeal Glass-Steagall. The regulators started creating loopholes. Finally, Congress got rid of it in 1999. We hit the big crash in 2008, and we all said, including here, there's too much concentration in the banking industry. The big are too big, and that's why we have too big to fail.
But, Senator, those big, large mega banks that you would now like to break up, arguably are the ones that survived the crisis most successfully. It was the investment banks like Lehman that had the biggest problems.
The ones that we bailed out were these big financial institutions, and here's the scary part. They're now 30% bigger than they were when we bailed them out. So what this is about is just to say, look, it's going to take a lot of tools to get rid of too big to fail, but one of them ought to be, if you want to go do high-stakes gambling, good on you, but you don't get access to people's savings accounts and checking accounts, because when you do that, it both makes you really big, and the intertwining makes it more likely you're going to get bailed out by the U.S. taxpayer.
Your critics are already suggesting this is more about politics than policy. This is going back in time. No chance that there's a real, this is going to stand a chance of passing in the U.S. Senate.
Oh, now, come on. Have you seen who I'm fighting with on this? I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with John McCain. I couldn't ask for a better fighter. We've got Angus King, an independent from Maine, and Senator Cantwell from Washington. You got a Democrat, you got a Republican, you got an independent. You've got people who say this just makes sense. Because here's what I'm not hearing. The defense for why it is someone who wants to take high-risk gambles should be able to get access to your savings account to do it.
You do not believe that there can be a well-capitalized, diversified, large bank in this country that can manage risk appropriately?
Look, they can do it. They just shouldn't be doing the kinds of high-risk Wall Street gambling. They can manage a diversified portfolio within the banking sphere, but not the kind that's doing Wall Street investments. Nope.
The argument's going to be, again, you're opposed to bank profits in any form.
No, I'm not. You know, here's the key that we really have to remember. When Glass-Steagall was originally passed, we had had banking crashes basically every 15 years from 1797 forward. We passed Glass-Steagall and some other banking reforms, and we got 50 years of bank profitability, and here's the best part, no crashes, and an American middle class that strengthened and grew. We started pulling those regulatory threads out, creating loopholes in Glass-Steagall, letting the banks get more and more involved in whatever they wanted to do. And we ended up with the biggest crash since the Great Depression. We need to be pushing back. We have got to wind more risk out of the system. We can't be in a too-big-to-fail world, and Ben Bernanke says we still are.
Regulators out there, they've imposed tougher capital standards. We just heard about this new leverage ratio the banks are screaming about.
Yeah.
Why aren't you convinced that those steps in Dodd-Frank are enough to address your concerns?
Because the banks today are 30% bigger than they were 5 years ago. We all sat here 5 years ago and said they were too big, and that's what forced us to have too big to fail. They just got bigger. And we can't do this. This will help bring down the size and help make part of the system safer. Next time there's a big problem, I want to know the checking accounts, the savings accounts, that part of the system is perfectly safe.
Are you willing to cede some of this business to their foreign competitors?
I don't think it goes to their foreign competitors. You don't think we're capable of engaging in all those trading transactions? These guys on Wall Street have shown they can do it. They just don't need access to the money in your savings account to do it.
Have you received any assurance from the leadership from Harry Reid that this is a bill that will get some sort of consideration on the Senate floor?
You know, right now what we're doing is we're out there, we're fighting for it, we're introducing it. We'll keep this going.
Let me switch gears on you real quick. Our first chance to talk with you since you joined the Senate. As a member of the Banking Committee, you've got banking regulation. You also ultimately could have to vote on the successor to Ben Bernanke should he leave the Fed. What's your take right now on who that should be?
Oh, okay. Paul Volcker. I love him.
He's been there before. Are you sure he's up for that?
He probably wouldn't do it, but yeah, I really think he's up for it. I love Paul Volcker.
Well,
I think he's terrific.
Let me throw two other names out at you. Janet Yellen would make history as the first woman to chair the Fed, and Larry Summers, a former colleague of
Not just first woman, she's a smart person who would be in that position. Absolutely.
Both Janet Yellen and Larry Summers, your thoughts on that?
Two very smart people. You know, in that sense, we're really lucky. We've got really smart, talented people who could serve in that position.
Could Larry Summers get confirmed in the U.S. Senate?
I don't know.